Early in the morning, a lot of people gathered in one place. They were all waiting for someone. Judging by the silence in the hall, one can say that today there is some important occasion. And finally, they report that Duke Iril has arrived. Everyone immediately began to look for him with their eyes, especially the ladies. Every time he appears somewhere, the guy immediately becomes the center of attention, because some people come just to look at him. Those guests who have only recently begun to appear in high society react to him especially violently, and are not even embarrassed to discuss how they would run their fingers through his hair or squeeze his cute cheeks. He feels very awkward about these words, but Iril tries not to react, because if he felt embarrassed every time someone said something like that, it would look completely different. It is known about him that the guy became famous among the knights at a young age, but he never had a relationship. Naturally, this is the main thing that interests girls, and his awards, merits, and past are secondary. Meanwhile, very unexpectedly, two friends met here who somehow did not think that something like this could happen. They don't have the best relationship, as is usually the case. One is calm, and the other only tries to attract attention to herself and be one of the best. Amelia asks if the girl is really sitting in the corner as usual, and then laughs that perhaps with such a simple dress she really should be here. She doesn't care what her sister thinks about it. She came up to ask if she had seen Duke Iril, because she has to meet him. It's her dream. Amelia was upset that the lady was somehow useless, so she decided to go look for him herself in the hope that he would fall in love with her at first sight. The girl had just managed to exhale when someone turned to her again. The man asked if he understood correctly that she was Lady Claire from the House of Maurice. At first, she didn't understand why he needed this information. Then she felt that he was a very nice person, so she didn't ignore him and still spoke to him. Since he asked like that, it means that maybe someone is looking for her. He says that is true. These people are waiting for her in the living room, so he invites her to come in, and she can't wait to see who is waiting for her. Claire opened the door, apologized for disturbing them, explained that she was the girl they had called, and then asked if she could come in. Only the person who was in this room was the one she expected to see here last. The guy understands that she has a lot of questions, so he said that he called her because he wants to discuss something important. The girl thought that he probably confused her with someone else and gave the assistant the wrong name, which is quite possible. He understands how unexpected this is, and at that moment she thinks about what they can talk about, and even about something important. And then he says that it concerns marriage. The girl even smiles slightly because it looks more like a joke than the truth. She started pinching her face to see if it was a dream or not, because Claire very much doubts that among the other girls who look much more beautiful today, he could have chosen her. The lady tells him that they barely know each other, and how can he know what kind of relationship there might be between them? To which he replies that in fact they have already crossed paths several times at evening parties. But then Claire could not even imagine that he noticed her and even remembered her. She stood aside as usual, not attracting the attention of other guests, and especially not of such a respected person. And then he asks to let him explain everything in more detail. This year he turns 25, and his parents have been persuading him to get married for a long time. Since he inherited the title, they've only gotten worse. If Irel doesn't take action soon, they might just pick someone else to replace him. Now she has a question. Why did he choose her? Because there are many ladies around who only dream of receiving such an offer, especially as easily as he did it to her. Then he continued, "It turns out there is a person he has loved since childhood." Claire asked why he didn't offer it to her then, to which he said that she was currently studying abroad and wasn't going to come back for the next year, and he didn't have that much time. The girl wondered why he couldn't tell his parents that he wanted, and after that he would have a wife that he truly loved. He wanted, but they didn't tell him that they weren't officially engaged yet, so it didn't count. The lady says it's natural that they worry when your partner is so far away. The Duke says that this is the reason why he wanted to propose to her, and after that they had an awkward pause. He even thought that she was not interested. A few minutes passed. Claire asked if she understood correctly that he was asking for a marriage that would last only 1 year, and he replied that everything was correct. It seems like such an absurd idea, but still, when he looks at her with those emerald eyes, it's like she's being sucked in. And anyway, anyone would agree to it in her place, so there's nothing to even think about. Then she thought again, maybe this is just a realistic dream, And even if it turns out to be so, she still decided to behave with dignity, just as if she behaved in real life. Here she is already telling him that she basically understands his situation, and he is glad to hear it. After that, she asked if she could ask a question, if of course it wouldn't be too much on her part. She really wants to know why he chose her, because objectively, there are other candidates around who, it seems to her, are better suited to him. Irel says he has several reasons for this, most notably her family's financial situation. Morris's house belonged to the upper class of nobility, but after a severe flood 10 years ago, after this failed business venture, called for compensation for losses, and as a result, they were mired in debt. This means that he plans to make this marriage a deal so that everyone benefits from participating in it. The girl just in case said that in that case, she is not the only daughter, and her younger sister can also be considered for this position. She described her as more sociable and glamorous, and also more suitable in appearance for the wife of a duke. She thinks that if people find out this news and see them together, they simply won't believe that there could be love between them. To this, he said this, that he doesn't need a person next to him who knows the financial situation of the family and allows you to dress in lush dresses with your last money. He looks at people more deeply than it may seem. For him, it is not only the shell that is important, but also the inner qualities of a person. The girl didn't expect to hear this from him. He approaches the matter very seriously and she already likes it. The guy also said that someone who is unable to even comprehend the seriousness of his family's situation would not be able to take this deal seriously. His judgment is sharp and rational. If the guy made such an offer to her sister, Amelia, she would never give up the prince of her dreams after just a year. Then the girl asked if this meant that the reward for this marriage would be the support of her family. He replied that everything was correct. He would cover the losses from her father's unsuccessful business as a dowry and provide financial support for the entire next year. This contract is so important to him, it's very obvious, so she didn't even ask if he was sure about it or not. She still has thoughts that all this is not real. On the one hand, she is very pleased that he chose her, but on the other hand, the girl is afraid that all the girls who know and don't know her will simply hate her. Then they started talking about how she didn't need to take anything with her to his house, because he would provide everything she needed there. Although they had just talked about it a lot, Claire only now realized that she had agreed to the life of a duchess, and that today, if possible, she would need to move in with him. She will become the real mistress of the estate. She will also have to attend social events and communicate with her parents, and all that stuff. He also doesn't ask her to convince them, but he hopes that she will do everything possible to convince them, or at least not to quarrel. It is also very important to take into account one point. Simply being in the estate will not be enough. You will have to pretend to be a happy couple, because usually the first months or even years of a relationship, people literally glow with happiness, and she will have to look exactly the same. Now the guy asks what she thinks about all this and how profitable this offer is for her family. He clarified that if she fulfills the contract within a year, then he will make sure that she receives compensation. The lady can't stop admiring what a generous person he is. This is the most advantageous offer he could have come up with. He says that there is nothing surprising about this. After all, his future depends on it, and they will discuss all the details later, and he will make sure that, if possible, her future is secured even after this year ends. It turns out that, firstly, she will please her father, make a significant contribution to the development of the family, and of course anger her sister, who always humiliated her and said that her place was in the corner. That's not all. He thought everything through to the smallest detail, but remembered it only now. The Duke said that, if necessary, after they parted, he could use the influence of his family to find a new husband for her. Of course, one who would love her and she him too. He will also make sure that after all this she returns to society with her head held high and no one dares to discuss her. It sounds just perfect. You couldn't think of anything better. The girl does not understand how she could deserve such a gift from fate. He will literally do everything for her that is needed and even more. He also keeps repeating that if she needs anything else, she can just ask and he will do everything. Claire told him that everything he had said during this conversation was more than enough, and she didn't even have the conscience to say that she needed anything else. After that, he said that he had just given her such an opportunity, but since that was the case, then it could be agreed upon, if of course she had not changed her mind yet. The lady literally this morning could not even imagine that this would happen to her, that this day would be so eventful, and yet she doubted whether to leave the house today or not. And if she had not gone, she would have missed a lot. This is the first time she has heard from a respected person that she is better than her sister in some way, and this is absolutely objective. The guy is already helping her improve her self-esteem because there are huge problems with this. They started right from the moment she had a sister. It would seem that she would calmly say that everything suits her, but the lady suddenly says that she has some condition. She wants him to convince her parents of his abilities as a duke. She thought that something would not suit him, but he only asked if this was really all. For her, it is one of the hardest things to ask for, so the girl asked him not to treat it like a trifle. He tells her that he highly doubts that her parents will reject the offer from the ducal house, to which she says that he may be wrong. If she gets her parents' consent for the marriage, she will happily accept this agreement, so the decision is now his. A few days after accepting the marriage proposal, he quickly moved in, and time flew by very quickly. They received an invitation that he wanted to meet her parents to talk to them, and before the girl knew it, the day of Lord Errol's visit had arrived. Meanwhile, the day began very noisily. Although it seems to her that this is natural, the girl not only left the conviction to the discretion of the Lord. Well, I didn't think that they would believe her, even if she explained everything herself. Meanwhile, the guy thanked them for coming to visit him and immediately began by saying that he had a favor to ask of them. They can't even imagine what they'll talk to him about and what kind of important matter it is. And now they'll find out everything. In order not to waste time, the guy said that he wanted to ask for their daughter's hand in marriage. But from their reaction, it is not yet clear whether they are happy about this or not, and what they think about it. The girl's father couldn't believe he had just heard it with his own ears. He would have understood if they had been talking about Amelia. But the Duke speaks of Claire. They would rather believe that it is some kind of joke than the truth and a real request. The man immediately asked the assistant to bring his daughter here. But does he really want to show Amelia and make the guy choose her? Although it is strange that he even allowed such a thought that this is possible. This will only show his true attitude towards Claire. And in the meantime, the lady is already at the threshold. The door opens and their family falsely thinks that just a beautiful girl can interest such a man. Amelia greeted the distinguished guest. It was obvious how she tried to tidy herself up. She even put on her best dress, which she never wore at home without a reason. The parents started to smile. They were very pleased to look at their beautiful daughter. Only the guy looked at her completely differently. The lady has already started to pester him. She doesn't see that he doesn't care about her and is behaving just terribly. Since no one heard him, he repeated once again that he wanted to marry Claire and did not quite understand why they were trying to show him their second daughter. The parents still think that he probably just got the name wrong or that there was some kind of mistake because they can't imagine how such a person could pay attention to Claire. Then they demanded proof that Errol was not mistaken and really meant their second daughter. As they walked down the hallway to her room, the guy remarked that for a family that had some difficulties, they were living quite well. You can see expensive paintings on the walls. Everything is clean and luxurious. You can't even tell that they are going through the worst period in this regard. They are already very close. He's a little nervous, but still confident that everything will work out, especially since he is a very respected person and marrying his daughter to him would be an honor for any family. The girl pretends as if she didn't know that they had guests, and she does it very well. She doesn't even seem to notice anyone. Irel greeted her in a gentle voice, said how much he missed her, and from these words, everyone's faces immediately turned pale. Inside, she was very pleased to see this, but outwardly, she did not show it and behaved as if they had really been dating for a very long time, and that such hugs were something usual for her. The Duke even called her his beloved, and at that moment did not look at anyone, so as not to show how embarrassed he was. Naturally, as expected, Amelia couldn't stand it. She asked her what it was and how to understand it, while clenching her fist as if she could no longer control herself. The girl explained that they understood everything correctly. Irel recently proposed to her and she accepted, but for them it sounded like something impossible, as if Amelia should have been in her place. No one can say anything anymore. It's as if they've forgotten the words, although it's simply called envy. Even the father does not hide the fact that he is not entirely happy that the guy chose Claire, because he always thought that only Amelia could be so lucky. This is what happens when parents underestimate one child, then find out what he is capable of and don't know how to react to it. Although Irel understood perfectly well how Claire was treated in this house, he didn't say anything about it. He just made a conclusion and was convinced that he made the right choice. The father had no choice but to say that he wished them a happy family life, although it was clearly audible that he said it with difficulty. He has been convinced all his life that Amelia will be the first to marry, and he cannot believe that Claire will become the wife of a guy who is better than no one will find. The man keeps wiping his face from sweat. Something is really bothering him, and he can't do anything about it. They are so disgusted by the sight of Claire in her fiancé's arms that they can hardly resist turning away. The girl is very relaxed because the guy did everything for her. He probably understood how difficult it would be for her, so he took everything into his own hands. She also tries to play the role of a lover on her part, although this could not be done because the relatives already believed them. When suddenly the most important thing began, my sister realized that she had missed her dream and decided to give free rein to her emotions. Everything that was in her hands flew at Claire, and she did it so abruptly that no one even expected it from her. She very quickly turned in her direction and started throwing pots, flowers, everything that was nearby. And she also asked if Claire understood what she had done and how this action would ruin her life. I just wonder if she really thinks that this is bothering her now. Their mother is silent all this time. She understands that nothing depends on her, and her daughter's hand was asked only out of politeness. Even if they want to, they still won't be able to not allow them something. And in the meantime, Amelia began to allow herself too much. She hit her sister on the cheek so hard that she immediately had a huge red mark that is unlikely to go away in a couple of days. It's clear that Amelia is very unhappy, but she's really going too far because the guy is not her property, and he sent her to decide for herself who to choose as his wife. Meanwhile, the wedding took place on the 3rd of the following month. By this time, everything was prepared, so no one was worried about it. During this time, Amelia's persecution only got worse. She tried to ruin the wedding several times, but the dress given to her by the Duke improved her mood a little. As for Claire, the swelling on her cheek had finally gone down by that day, and she was able to share their second kiss without any problems. Everything went very well. After the wedding, the girl lay down on the bed because she was not used to spending so much time in heels and maintaining her posture. She thought she would get some sleep, but somehow forgot that she actually now has a husband and he can come by at any moment. And that's exactly what happened. He came into her room literally a couple of minutes after she got there, saying that he had a very nice bride. The lady was not expecting him, so she started to feel embarrassed. She took off her wedding dress and felt awkward in her pajamas. He told her that everything was fine, especially since he would often see her like this, and also suggested talking about whether she regretted agreeing to his proposal. She told him that on the contrary, it was the best decision in her life, and the only thing she regrets is that he didn't appear in her life earlier. Then he realized that she was probably very tired and came here to be alone, so he decided to leave her alone, and they could talk about everything else at any other time. Finally, he also said that Claire shouldn't be embarrassed to appear in front of him like this, because she already looks beautiful, and besides, they didn't marry for love, so she shouldn't care what he thinks about her. After that, she really felt better. Now she knows for sure that she can relax and gain strength before the next day, which will be no less eventful and interesting. This is her first night as a wife, and so far nothing has happened that could make her regret it. Of course, like any other girl, she would dream of being in such a status for real, but the current conditions also suit her. This is the best possible outcome she could have gotten, so there really is nothing to complain about. Time passed very unnoticed. It was already the next day outside. Claire opens her eyes and feels how well she rested. Her assistant came to her. She said that it was already noon and asked what the lady would like for breakfast. She said that it was hard to decide yet, so now it would be better to think about what to wear, if she even had any clothes here. And then they realized that there are some problems with this. She has very few of her own things, and they still haven't bought any new ones because they've been busy preparing all the time. The girl is afraid to hint that she needs new clothes, and the assistant herself started the conversation by saying that her wardrobe is not at all suitable for this mansion and for her status as the Duke's wife. Claire was glad that someone would take charge of this issue, and she didn't have to hint at anything. This is very pleasing. After a while, she and another assistant went down to the first floor to get acquainted with the Meadows. The girl said that she would be very happy if there were no misunderstandings between them, and the butler said that he was sure of it. They are all very happy to welcome the new owner, hoping that with her in this house, it will only get better, but not the other way around. The lady admitted that she already wants to do something and would be grateful if she could first be given a short tour here so that I wouldn't get lost and mix up the rooms. The man promised to do it, but some other time, because now he is very busy. Claire doesn't mind. She doesn't want to overexert anyone, so she agreed to the excursion when it is convenient for everyone. Although they had agreed to do this later, since she had nothing to do anyway, the girl decided to go for a walk. She was passing by some maids and accidentally overheard them discussing her, which means they are not as friendly as she was told. It's obvious that they have something against her. Otherwise, they wouldn't look at her with such a look, as if they were mocking her. They don't even hide it. The whole time the lady was around, they kept looking at her and did it on purpose to make her feel awkward. So she had to go outside because there should be fewer servants here. As soon as the girl entered the garden, she already felt how this beautiful harmony filled her. She felt delightful here. When suddenly, a little later, she met a maid who was quietly crying and trying to quickly do her job, as if she had just been yelled at. She tries not to show that something is wrong, but the lady still came up to her. Maybe she will be able to calm her down. Claire warned that there is no need to be afraid of her. She just came to ask what happened, because she sees that something is wrong here. The assistant admitted that today she came to work a little later than she was supposed to, and for this she was punished. If she can't wash all these clothes in half an hour, she will be fired. Claire looked at this huge mountain, and of course she wasn't going to pass by. She said they could do it together. The assistant started saying that it was wrong and that she should deal with it herself. But the lady still managed to persuade her and promised that if anything happened, she would not allow herself to be fired. Milana immediately calmed down, although at the same time she still doesn't believe that this is actually happening. She had never thought before that some noble ladies could be such kind and good people. Although there is nothing wrong with this, some girls even touch dirty clothes and ask assistants to do the most basic things that they could do themselves. Milana shed a few tears. She hadn't been helped like this for a long time. She will probably remember this situation for a very long time. Although she is a little embarrassed that the girl is wasting her free time because of her, she feels very happy and calm inside. They even started talking about the fact that she hadn't had a vacation for a long time, so Claire promised that as soon as she had such an opportunity, she would definitely help her with this. They even managed to become friends. They got so into conversation that they didn't notice how someone approached them. The gentleman asked what they were doing there, and Milana took it as if she would definitely be punished now. Claire asked her not to worry, started talking to her husband, and explained that she wanted to meet this maid herself. The guy asked her to explain how she came up with this idea because he doubts that she just wanted to go outside and wash her clothes. She got a little nervous and tripped over the bowl and ended up twisting her ankle a little. They were all already in his office. Claire repeated that she saw the maid and wanted to join her because she was not used to sitting around doing nothing, and also said that she did not see anything wrong with it. Then she asked what was wrong with her doing something in her free time, because as far as she knew, there was no rule here that she couldn't help someone or communicate with the servants just like that. The husband says that she is absolutely right, but he still thinks that such a beautiful lady could find herself some other occupation. But definitely not to wash clothes with his feet, because if necessary, he could find some friends for her. To which she told him that if it was necessary, she would have told him about it a long time ago. Moreover, she is the kind of person who tries not to differentiate people by status, and if she feels comfortable with one of the maids, then she will be happy to communicate with her, like today. Milana was so nervous that she burst into tears and said that if she was guilty of something, she would agree to quit that same day. Claire is surprised that today's situation raises any questions at all. She didn't expect this. The head maid started to explain to her that different statuses exist so that people communicate with the right people, and the lady replied that it even sounded strange. She believes that you need to communicate with those with whom you feel comfortable, especially since she is a free person and has the right to decide for herself who she wants to be friends with, even if it is a cleaning lady or a maid. She never liked people who behaved too arrogantly. It was unpleasant to communicate with them, but with people like Milana, it was quite normal, which is what she actually did. She tries to explain that it is her choice, and no one has the right to decide for her whether it is appropriate for her to spend time with someone. The husband tries to say that she is, of course, saying everything correctly, but he is worried that if his friends find out about this, there may be some questions. Her answer is very simple, that there were no such points in the contract, so she will probably be friends with Milana, whether they like it or not. She also says that there is no point in talking at all because her position remains unchanged. She understands, of course, that she is not in her home and that it is only her first day here, but still she wants to decide for herself who to communicate with and who not to. She already sees that she is finishing arguing with her, so most likely this conversation will very soon come to an end. Finally, Claire explained that she didn't want to argue with anyone, didn't want to seem unpleasant, but the situation was such that she was forced to defend her position, to which the butler replied that they just wanted the best, but now they understand that it's only her business. The girl also asked the head maid if she wouldn't be offended if some people didn't talk to her just because she had a low status, but she looked at her as if she didn't even know what to say. She tried to understand the situation and even admitted that perhaps the lady was right. One shouldn't pay so much attention to status when it comes to the personal preferences of each person. Because among aristocrats, it is very difficult to find sincere people who can be trusted, and ordinary people very often turn out to be pleasant and comfortable. Claire is very glad that they understood this, and also wanted to talk about the fact that some maids allow themselves too much, and she has already seen two who clearly have something against her. The woman promised to look into it because they have a rule not to discuss someone else's personal life, since they are just servants here and no one is obliged to like them. On the contrary, they should do everything possible to please those they serve. The girl thanked for understanding and said that perhaps at this point they could part ways. Even the husband admitted that he didn't think she could conduct a dialogue so constructively. He expected that she would simply listen to them and not argue, but she explained her position, and this is commendable. He very rarely met girls like her, and he was glad that his wife was a smart girl, and not just a beautiful one. After that, he asked everyone else to leave. After all, they have some things to discuss with her. For example, her wardrobe. One of his assistants has already told him about this. The guy already found out some addresses of shops that are nearby and where you can go shopping. Of course, she is very happy to hear this, but she still feels a little awkward because she is not used to spending other people's money. A couple of hours passed. The guy had no business or scheduled meetings today when suddenly the king's younger brother, Kate Valona, arrived. Not only did the man come without warning, but he also said that the guy has an unpleasant grin that he should get rid of. Irel knows this man very well, so he doesn't even react to such words because it's meaningless. He is a little uncomfortable that the guy feels at home here, but he comes here very rarely, so he can tolerate it for a little while. Kate found out that Irel got married, and looking at his wife, he has only one question: is it real or not? Because he can't believe that such two people can fall in love with each other just like that. Irel explained that the girl simply turned out to be more interesting than he thought, and that when they stopped communicating for a while, he realized that he could no longer live without her, so he decided to get married. Kate says that he saw her a couple of hours ago, and he didn't like that she was kind of quiet, unremarkable, nothing special. Only he forgot the fact that Irel chose a wife for himself and not for someone else. And if someone doesn't like something, then it's not his problem. And he also tries to talk to him so as not to spoil the relationship. Although if everything continues like this, there will be a scandal. He will not allow anyone to discuss his wife in a bad light, even if he does not have feelings for her. And in the meantime, as the husband promised, he went shopping, and during that day they plan to update her wardrobe so that she no longer needs anything and she has clothes for every season. He offers her to choose any dress she likes, but Claire is so unaccustomed to such options that she is afraid to choose even one. The guy is interested in the question of whether these dresses will need to be hemmed, because if they are already normal, then he can save time and go about his business. And if he needs to adjust the size, then he can already agree with who does it. And he also suggested that they have dinner together and that she put on some new dress, so to speak. Take him for a walk. Claire is worried that she might stain her new clothes. She is used to wearing old ones and has forgotten that she needs to be careful with all things, especially at the table. And so that she wouldn't be embarrassed to choose as much as possible, he warned her that very soon she would be invited to events several times a week. So while they were all gathered here, she better not be embarrassed and replenish her wardrobe as much as possible, so that later you don't have to waste time on this again, because now you can buy a lot in a couple of hours and then not remember about it. While she went to try on a dress, he sat comfortably on the sofa to comment and help with the choice. It seems to him that there is nothing complicated about it. He even said that everything will suit her, and how it will be, we will see now. And then he hears the lady asking the assistant to carefully pack the first dress in a bag, as if it were some kind of crystal that might break. The assistant asks if this is the only dress she wants to take with her, and the girl answers that they are all good, but she is unlikely to wear them. She will just take them to keep in her room. The assistant pretended that she had nothing against it, although in fact, she does not understand how one cannot want to appear in a new outfit every day. Because for some noble ladies, their huge wardrobe is sometimes not enough. They only do what they go shopping, and here is such a situation. Claire is afraid to put on something new. It's as if she considers herself unworthy of all these dresses, which means that something needs to be done about it. She grew up in a family of marquises, but they were always poor. She had to collect scraps from her mother and sister's old dresses to make her own. This is the reason why she is so economical in her approach to clothing. And she also so often adapted other people's clothes to fit her needs that she learned to sew quite well. She even liked doing it at one time, but then she got tired of the fact that she couldn't even look at the threads and everything connected with it normally. Meanwhile, even though her husband has no obligations, he still wants to make her happy, although they haven't discussed it. He wants to do something new for her so that she has emotions, memories, and the feeling that, with him, her life has become better. Maybe he himself doesn't think about why he does more than he promised, but sooner or later he will understand everything. Meanwhile, several hours have passed. The girl finds out that her lunch is in the middle of nowhere. The assistant apologizes, tries to explain something, but the lady still doesn't understand anything. Claire asks how this could have happened, and Milana admits that she accidentally dropped a bowl of soup on her way down the hallway. After this, the lady admitted that, to be honest, she didn't really want to have lunch because after a hearty breakfast, she had no room left, and she wouldn't want to eat anything for at least a few more hours. In the end, they agreed that Claire would drink tea because Milan couldn't leave her without anything at all. The assistant had already brought the tea, laughed a little that this time she was able to deliver the order, and promised that this would not happen again. After that, the girl looked at her and then thought, why should she stay here alone? Because she can combine business with pleasure. She suggested that Milana stay here with her and drink tea. They hadn't had a rest for a long time, and the assistant asked how normal this is because she has never heard of servants having the right to drink tea with the mistress. Claire said that if it was her coming, then there was nothing wrong with that, especially since she had already had a serious conversation with her husband about this, and he was now not against such get-togethers. He probably realized that she has no one else to talk to, so there is nothing wrong with becoming friends with Milana. And maybe not only, the girl noticed that since she became friends with moths, she has a feeling that she is not alone here. For example, she would not be able to communicate with other maids because they were against her from the very beginning. But with Milana, it is so comfortable, as if they have known each other since childhood. She feels that this particular assistant is a very good person, so she is absolutely comfortable with her, and she still does not see any problems with this. Each time they get closer to each other, you can see how Milana starts to behave more casually, unlike how at the beginning, she was afraid to even call her mistress by name. Claire still doesn't let her get close. Communication's all very well, but they can't be so close that she tells her everything. At this point, Claire wanted to know if Milana was in touch with any of her colleagues because, as she noticed, there were few people here with whom she could be friends. She replied that there are problems with this because some people only do what they say to others, but she is not like that, so she often stands somewhere in the corner so as not to participate in this. Then they went out for a walk outside, At this time, it was not so hot, and it just so happened that there was no one there. They both are crazy about flowers, especially roses. So they came here first, and there are so many of them here that it's impossible to resist. They just want to hug this whole bush or move it right into the room, but it's probably better not to do that. Claire loves it when the wind blows rose petals and they release a crazy scent that envelops her from head to toe. It was getting on for the evening. The girl had already returned home and found out that her husband had recently suddenly woken up and left on business. Milana says that he usually warned where he was going and when he would return, but this time he just left silently, as if he didn't want to tell anyone anything. The lady also can't remember him telling her anything like that, especially since Arel is the kind of person who cares about others knowing where he is, and vice versa. And Milana also admitted that she still feels awkward that he doesn't spend time together as often, because the other maids have probably already discussed this because they might be jealous. The girl replied that they themselves made it so that she was indifferent to them, and that is why it turned out that the lady treats everyone around her the same way they treat her. No better, no worse. Milana is afraid that sooner or later they will give her a very serious talk or think that she is communicating with the lady for the sake of profit. Claire asks that if something like this happens, she should tell her about it right away, and then she will definitely sort it out with them and explain what's what. And in the meantime, the next day has come. Although the girl has a lot of questions about when her husband managed to return and where he was, she restrains herself and pretends in front of everyone that everything is fine. And her stomach also hurts a little because yesterday she only had breakfast and drank tea. So she feels so bad that she can't even perceive the food on the table, even though it smells delicious. Now she is completely indifferent to it, and in the meantime, the guy notices that she is not eating anything. He even thought that she didn't like something and suggested that she just name what she wants. The chef will cook everything for her. She tells him that she is just wondering where to start, although she doesn't really want to touch anything. The girl promised herself that she would never skip a meal again. And at the same time, under the oppressive gaze of her husband, she tries to find something harmless on the table. And she suddenly came up with an excuse that she supposedly doesn't like mornings very much and can't force herself to have breakfast even with a small piece of bread. She agreed with him that it would be better to eat more at lunch than to choke on food that wouldn't go down now. After breakfast, they decided to take a little walk around the area, and since they hadn't talked for a long time, he asked if she has managed to get used to it and how comfortable she feels here. Claire says that everything is fine, but it is very difficult for her to live in such a beautiful house and at the same time to do nothing, so she feels that she does not deserve to be here. And if she could be useful and do something, it would be easier for her. He says that he understands her very well, but asks her to finally realize that she, as his wife in principle, does not have any obligations, especially since they do not love each other, so he cannot demand anything from her at all. It is enough for her to simply be here, and these are all her responsibilities. Each time she realizes that being his wife is the greatest gift she has ever received. Now I wonder how long the girl will last without falling in love with him for real. She herself is a little afraid of this, but still thinks that hiding feelings, even if they appear, will be easy as pie. And in the meantime, having returned to her room, she grabbed some buns and suggested that Milana have a little snack together. She found out if there were any leftovers from breakfast. They put a couple of buns in her hand, and that was basically enough. It turned out that Milana hadn't had time to eat anything for the first time in a long time, and was still hungry. And if you also take into account the fact that she had a bad dinner, then Claire brought these buns just in time, as she knew she needed them. At first, the assistant refused. She promised to have something to eat in a while, but these excuses did not work, and the lady forced her to eat anyway. Milana is surprised every time how lucky she is with her mistress. She is not only kind, but also caring. She can't imagine how she lived here without her before, because with her appearance, everything became much brighter, more comfortable and better in all areas. She even cried when she ate this bun because she thought that she wouldn't even have time to bite anything today. It's very painful for Claire to watch a person who eats and cries because she used to react like that to any food. She even began to suspect that perhaps there were some problems with food among the staff. If she didn't forget, she promised herself to look into this or at least observe how much and what the servants were fed. It was already evening. The girl was hungry, she told Milan about it, and the assistant apologized that she somehow forgot about it. The lady explained that she didn't mean it that way at all. It wasn't meant to sound like a complaint. The girl just misunderstood everything. Back home, it was normal to go without food for a long time. So every time she has to be reminded of it here, she feels like she's asking for a lot. She remembers very well how she used to come to the kitchen in tears from hunger, and there was nothing there, not even a mug of bread. This is considering the fact that their house looked from the outside as if they simply couldn't have such problems. Out of the blue, a great idea came to Claire's head. She suddenly wanted to cook food for herself, especially since she had long dreamed of being in a kitchen full of food and without a sense of shame to cook any dish she wanted. The assistant expected to hear anything from her, but not this. She had never heard that someone like the lady wanted to be in the kitchen and cook. Of course, she immediately supported this idea. She herself is interested in seeing it, and she is also calm because since the lady herself wanted it, no one will punish them for it. And suddenly, if someone asks questions, it will be possible to say that the lady herself asked for it. The two of them are in very different moods right now. Claire is eager to create something, and Milana doubts that she can cook at all. It is unclear why, but the assistant still feels uneasy. She is not allowed to appear here during working hours and even in any situation. The lady will solve everything. Something is still bothering her. Meanwhile, the girl comes up and asks her to relax, especially since she should remember how well she can defend her position and talk if someone doesn't like something. The lady suggested that if Milana doesn't want to participate in this, she can just be nearby, and she will cook. Moreover, everyone should do what they like, and if Milana doesn't want to do something, especially after a hard day at work, no one forces her. Literally 10 minutes have passed. They are already cooking some kind of aromatic and rich broth, the smell of which can probably already be smelled throughout the house. Although there is a good hood here, so they will definitely not disturb anyone, Claire is so eager to chop vegetables that Milana herself wants to join in. She couldn't even imagine that the lady was so good at it that she could even peel potatoes just perfectly, as if she had been doing it all her life. Again, she didn't acquire all these skills by some miracle. Before she had to cook something tasty from a limited amount of products, and there were very few spices. The products were rarely fresh, but she even found a way out of this situation and cooked delicious dishes. Therefore, in such conditions, where there is everything, where any product is tasty in itself, it is not difficult for her to prepare a masterpiece. If there was a chance, she would most likely stand in the kitchen all day long until she got bored, and Milana listens to her and can't believe her ears. She also always wanted to learn how to cook, but no matter how much she tried, she couldn't make even basic dishes tasty, where you don't need to try and have any skills. The lady promised that someday they would definitely set aside a whole day for her to teach her how to cook and tell her a few rules that make it easier. She knows so much about this topic that she herself would be interested in teaching someone about it, so they came up with a new thing that can be done on any other day. The girl asked Milana not to cry because when she sees a crying person, it is very hard for her to hang herself, and she can also become sad. Especially since they have such a delicious dish, there is very little left and they will finally have a delicious dinner, maybe even enough to share with someone. They don't notice anything. They're talking, the food is cooking, everything is almost ready, when suddenly the door in the kitchen opens very quietly. The girls were so carried away that they didn't notice how several people approached them, smelling something delicious. They just started discussing that they could invite someone to the tasting, and imagine their surprise a few seconds later when they realize that they don't need to invite anyone anymore. Everyone is already here. Milana accidentally looked to the side, and from what she saw, she froze in one place as if there was some kind of animal in front of her. Claire notices that something is wrong. She also turned to look and was also a little scared, and she is also very confused by the fact that she does not even know how long they have been here. There's a husband standing by the door, a cook and several maids. 3 of you are unhappy, but the guy's laughing, as if he thinks that she cooked something that can be immediately poured into the sink. Although the smell says otherwise, it is so appetizing that they smelled it even on the second floor. Although usually when someone is cooking something here, the smell is not heard even behind the door. The girl first apologized for going into the kitchen, into these people's workplace, without permission or warning, and then explained that she just really wanted to do it and was afraid to distract someone from resting. If there was someone here, she certainly wouldn't have come here, but seeing that there was no one here, she decided not to waste time. The husband says that he is very glad that she found something that she enjoys doing and has already started hinting that he would like to try what she has succeeded in. Claire warned that she hadn't cooked for a long time and hadn't even tried the broth before, so it would be a surprise to her how it tasted, but something still told her that it couldn't be bad. You can tell from these two assistants how unhappy they are that she's even here, although it's strange that they even think that anyone cares about their opinion. This is all the property of the master, and if he wants, then she will appear here at least every day, whether they like it or not. He could want to bring him. After they seemed to have come to terms with what was happening here, she also began to suggest that if she suddenly made a delicious soup so that she could replace the cook on some days, this would add a few days off to him, which he couldn't help but be happy about, and she would be doing what she liked. Then she regretted that she said it without thinking, although no one even reacted in any way, and she already thought to herself that it was a terrible idea. My husband says that they will leave here a little later, but first they need to try her food and clean up the place. It's strange that the servants react as if she could replace them, and they would be fired. This won't happen, and the mistress just came to the kitchen when there was no one here anyway and didn't make anyone worse. In the meantime, so that the food wouldn't get cold, she suggested first tasting her creation and only then discussing everything that was bothering everyone. Because she tried very hard and it would be a shame if she had to eat a cold dish later, the assistants quickly set the table. It turns out that Claire also made a mistake, although the guy would never have thought that she could work with such a complex product. She says that she doesn't have any recipes. She did everything as she felt and is even worried that her food may only look good, but the taste will be the opposite. Meanwhile, Irel doesn't even have time to say anything. He ate the first portion and got to the soup, and this is an indicator that at least everything is edible. The girl really wants to ask him what he likes and dislikes, but she worries that this will only distract him. So he had already finished everything, and in the end he said that he would like to eat her food sometimes. Because it has some unique taste, he doesn't know why, he just wants to eat it sometimes. He would like to say that it should be more often, but in order not to offend the cooks, he said that she should only come into the kitchen sometimes. Most likely, when they are alone, he will tell her that it was great. Although even now, while he has not said anything special, she is still pleased. Nothing foreshadowed an important conversation, when suddenly it turned out that the guy accidentally overheard how his wife and Milana were talking about the fact that some servants were left without food, and this had been happening for quite a long time, while the rest had a full diet. And Milana, with whom everyone communicated the least, suffered the most from this. The gentleman said this out loud. Claire was very surprised how he knew about it, and the cook and assistant began to make excuses, as if he was mistaken and that everyone ate the same. Since such a problem really exists, the girl also joined the conversation and started by saying that she would be able to personally control this moment because she believes that personal relationships should not in any way influence how the staff eats. They all work the same way. They all have the same rights, and no one has the right to infringe on anyone and anything, especially at their own request or out of dislike for someone. Claire asked a test question about what Milana's maid had for breakfast and lunch today, and they didn't expect that, and it was obvious how hard it was for them to come up with something. All because Milana has been without food for several days in a row, simply because she is not part of their company. The maids began to say that she herself refused to have breakfast and lunch with them, although if this were so, Milana could simply eat in another room, but she had not eaten even a crumb of bread for several days. Irel already understood everything at this point. He is just waiting for them to admit their guilt and explain how it all started. His wife thought that no one would ever confess the way they were presenting it, so she decided that she would just deal with what she already had and see if they were improving or not. This is the most effective method, because not checking is the same as letting everything slide. Meanwhile, the next day came. The weather was beautiful outside, No one had any plans when suddenly Kate comes to the gentleman again, as usual, without warning, apparently thinking that he is always welcome here. The guy didn't even try to guess what he wanted from him. He just calmly waited for him to start talking. This time he just came to ask how he was doing, how his family life was. Apparently he himself had nothing to do. He got bored, so he decided to visit. Irel thought what to hide, started to tell that when he came home yesterday, he saw his wife in the kitchen, then tried the dish and was perplexed because it was one of the most delicious dishes that he tried. He understands that most likely he is not very interested in this, but since the guest asked, let him accept the answer. Kate thinks there must be some reason why the girl went into the kitchen, because as far as he knows, it's the least favorite thing for anyone except those with talent. He also suggested talking to her seriously because there must be something that made her do this. In a sense, he's even right, because that's true. Before, she didn't have the opportunity to cook basic food for herself, so now she does it for pleasure and does it very well. After this, Irel said that it turned out that some servants were restricting their colleagues in terms of food and that this had been going on for a long time. Kate asked why he couldn't just do the easy thing, just change the servants, because dealing with the current one would take time, stress, and unnecessary problems. The guy says he's thought about it himself, but his wife says if she can't figure it out, then they'll really have to create ads and fire people who aren't worthy of working there. Kate tries not to interfere where he is not asked, but still, he is the kind of person who is not used to keeping everything to himself. He decided to advise giving the girl the opportunity to do something, because if she sits around doing nothing, she will get used to it and will start to resent it if she is ever asked to do anything. Moreover, being his wife, she is obliged to take part in some internal affairs, and this is absolutely normal. There is no need to be afraid to overload her, because she is an adult, not a child, in fact. The guy absolutely agrees with him and also began to remember how he himself once told her that she does not owe anything, and he is pleased to see how she still tries to take part in something. This means that she is not lazy. If something happens, you can rely on her, and that she is not only a beautiful girl, but also a very good person. She even took pity on the servants who did not hide their dislike for her and gave them a second chance, and that says a lot. Some time passed. The guy had already done all his business, said goodbye to the guest, went down to the first floor, where he was met by his smiling wife. Claire asked him how he was feeling, whether he was tired or not, and it was so nice that his cheeks turned red. He asked why such pleasantries. She said that they just hadn't seen each other for a long time, and she was interested in how he spent his day. At first, he thought that she wanted something from him, but she immediately said that it was basic politeness and that they were not in a quarrel, so she should not talk to him. Since they met, he says that he will be going through something in 2 weeks and asked if she will go with him or not. They were invited by the Boyle family because they are on friendly terms with them. Of course, Claire agreed, because they had previously agreed that she would be with him at various events. This is the only thing that is required of her in this relationship. Since they are married, he should show up at events with her. Otherwise, someone might think that it is not so. Evening came. The girl came into the room, lay down under the blanket, and began to fear that something would go wrong at the event. She hasn't appeared in high society for a very long time, and since many people are unhappy with her becoming her husband's wife, everything can't go smoothly. So the next day came. They met early in the morning on the first floor and asked each other how they were feeling. The girl admitted that she was very worried. Because of this, she didn't even sleep all night, and he was the same way. Moreover, while no one was looking, as soon as she woke up, she created a kind of mannequin of her husband. I waited until she was alone in the room and started rehearsing the dance so as not to embarrass myself later. She learned the most basic movements, although once she gets there, nothing will probably help. Because rehearsing in a room and being around a lot of people are two completely different things. She did everything, rehearsed the smile, learned a few movements, but it still didn't help because such events are absolutely unpredictable. And given her situation, there may be those who have arranged unpleasant surprises for her, such as Amelia or her parents, at the very least. She can dance a dance perfectly in her room, but in reality, she may not need it. She understands this herself. Suddenly, she won't have to dance at all, and the situation will be such that she will want to run away from there. Meanwhile, she returned to the room to take something with her, and her husband followed her when she did not see it. Claire forgot to put away her mannequin. hears the door to the room open and realizes that this is about to be a real disgrace. She wanted to throw it out the window, but her husband saw everything and it was too late. Now she will have to explain what it is. Naturally, he immediately asked why she had made such a thing, laughed a little, and she felt even more awkward. The girl tries to find the right words, but it doesn't work. She just keeps silent and wants to fall through the ground. She tells him that he got it all wrong, that she will explain everything now, although she still hasn't figured out what to say. The guy tries to explain that there is nothing wrong with it. They are still husband and wife, so she can safely tell him about all her secrets, especially since he sees that it is not something personal. So he even promised not to laugh too much, although this also did not sound very convincing. She did not feel any better after such words. Claire admitted that she rehearsed the dance with this mannequin so as not to embarrass herself and him. Something like that. The guy can only say to this that she is very smart and responsible. This is, of course, all very good, but she could have asked him to rehearse so that it would be more convenient, especially since it would not hurt him to prepare himself. The lady feels terrible. She feels that she has disgraced herself and does not even want to talk about it because she is so ashamed. She is angry with herself for not removing all the evidence, although somewhere deep down she understands that there is nothing wrong with it. And then he suggested that they agree that if she has any worries or problems, she should first tell him about it, because as a husband, he believes that he is obliged to make her life as less complicated and problematic as possible. The girl says that he already has a lot of worries, and then there are her problems. It would be somehow wrong, and she is not used to relying on others so much and so often. So the best thing she could think of was not to bother anyone and make this mannequin that wouldn't get tired and would tolerate any of her mistakes. The next day came. Today she was offered to drink tea outside because today is her favorite weather, when the sun is not shining very strongly. The girl agreed because it was another reason to smell that wonderful scent of roses that was driving her crazy. Today she saw that very mannequin in the closet and decided to keep it as a memory, even though yesterday she was already terribly ashamed of it. Today it even raised her spirits, and it will also be a reminder that you don't always have to solve problems on your own. Sometimes you can rely on others. When the girl had already sat down at the table, she remembered that she had not checked what the servants had for breakfast today. She promised herself that she would definitely supervise their lunch, especially Milana's lunch, who, judging by her mood, had again skipped breakfast for some reason. Today, the lady is in such a mood that she would drink tea all day and enjoy these beautiful views. She asked to bring her something new that she had never tried before, because she was sure that there must be something like that somewhere. She even had thoughts about making this day a completely unloading day in every sense of the word. And she also deliberately talks to the maids as if they hadn't recently had a serious conversation, specifically so that they feel comfortable, and didn't think that she was the kind of lady who would only do what she could to look for a reason to blame and punish someone. She even promised that if someone brought her very tasty tea, she would give that person an extra day off this month. Literally a couple of minutes later, a drink appeared on her table, which even in appearance looks simply excellent. She can't wait to try it, the lady, as promised, gave the maid a day off, although it doesn't seem like she was happy about it. Claire started to justify her again, that a person may be in a bad mood and maybe she is happy inside, but doesn't show it on the outside. The girl changed her mind about resting today again. She wanted to come to the kitchen in the evening, but this is an idea that can be postponed until the next day. And in the meantime, while the assistant is here, she thought, why not find out how things are with the nutrition of colleagues? The maid reported that today each of them had breakfast, lunch, and dinner are about to start, and they don't start eating until everyone appears in the dining room. This is their new rule. The lady is very happy that they are fulfilling her requests, although she thinks that it will still be necessary to check this, because they have said before that everything is fine with them in this regard, but in fact some people were left without food. At that moment a light wind blew towards her, and she again felt a very strong scent of flowers, which made her so happy that she immediately allowed the assistant to go about her business. If she got tired of standing here, she really did linger here. The girl replied that she had nothing to do. She would probably stay, and that if anything happened, she would quickly bring her another portion of tea. A couple of minutes later, the lady couldn't hold back and asked a personal question about why the girl was in a bad mood all this time, since nothing bad had happened and she hadn't said anything offensive to her. The assistant replied that she simply had a relative who was seriously ill, so she thinks about it all day and can't smile calmly. The girl said that she would definitely say worse about it. Maybe she would be able to find some medicine, and thus made the assistant very happy. It's clear that the girl didn't even think that everything would turn out like this. She didn't expect help from anyone, and then this happened. Claire also says that if she can help with anything else, the girl can safely contact them, because they believe that if someone has the opportunity to help, they should do so, regardless of the status of the person in need. The assistant feels a little awkward. She has already resigned herself to the fact that she and her family will let this matter slide because they do not have as much money as the medicine costs. She really wanted to say how grateful she was, but the gentleman unexpectedly called her, so she was forced to leave. Milana came instead of her. She really wanted to help the lady today, but she saw that there was another colleague next to her and decided not to approach. The girl was calmly enjoying her tea, then suddenly remembered that it was time to clean up and realized that she had that very mannequin in her room that someone could see. She suddenly ran to hide it, but was too late. She saw her mannequin in the hands of the maid who was picking out her room today, and this is the same one who brought her tea today. The lady was so embarrassed, as if something more awkward than just this had happened. Lucky that the assistant at least didn't laugh, although she's probably still holding back. At this moment, Claire starts to cry very hard. She is tired of feeling ashamed. Milana was nearby. She recognized her voice and came to find out what was going on here. At first, she didn't see anything, but then she looked at her colleague and realized what could be the reason for such behavior. Katerina suddenly says that she didn't want to make the lady cry, and in general, they don't quite understand what's so special about it. She heard that other aristocrats also use this method to be more confident. After that, she felt a little better. But still, after so many awkward situations, it was impossible to react calmly. For some reason, she thought that everyone would start laughing at her. But everything turned out very well. They reacted even more calmly than her husband, who laughed in the very first second. And meanwhile, he is at his morning training, which has been going on for several hours already, but he is used to it. He loves this business so much that even in the rain, when the weather does not allow him to train normally, he still goes out and seems not to pay attention to anything. For him, it is a matter of principle, because discipline comes first, and he is sure that if he misses even one day, he will blame himself for it for the rest of his life. Today, that same guy who didn't go home is training with him. They've become too close lately that they can't part ways. They already have much more pleasant conversations than a couple of days ago. They just got used to each other. Or maybe they just got tired of arguing. There is only one downside to all this. The guy is very distracting. He wants to talk, and he almost never understands when it is appropriate, when you need to be silent and concentrate. While there are a couple of free minutes, Errol wanted to tell about yesterday's situation when he saw a mannequin in his wife's room. He wants to talk about it in order to tell her how responsible she is, and that it is very important for her that he is happy with her. He liked the fact that she does more than is required of her, because even if she had not danced with him, he still would not have blamed her for anything, because the main thing at the event is only her presence. Kate says that he hears only good things about her from him and nothing bad. He gets the impression that that girl is ideal, and Errol is so lucky with her that one day he will fall in love with her. The guy says that it's actually impossible because he hasn't thought about it for a single day and doubts that they are right for each other. Kate begins to convince him that it is impossible for people to live together for a whole year and not have any feelings for one of them. He heard that it was enough to just live together all the time, and someone had to think at least for a moment about whether they could be together, at least theoretically. Errol had a vision of the girl he loves and is madly looking forward to meeting, but for some reason he doesn't deny his friend's words. I'm very curious how their story will develop further, because his silence clearly says something, even if he himself doesn't realize it. Moreover, a man who loves one girl very much cannot praise and tell someone about another with a smile. It's very good that his friend understands this, and at the right moment he might be able to give the right advice or open his eyes to many things. After this conversation, the guy thought a little that maybe he doesn't fully understand what he feels for this or that girl, but then he quickly forgot about it. A couple of hours passed, he returned home and suddenly began to pay too much attention to his wife. Although this had not happened before, could it have been that the conversation at training had somehow influenced this? The girl was even a little scared. Why was he so persistent? But he just wanted to pay attention to her and ask how she was doing. Then he said that since they had time, they could practice and dance some dance so that she wouldn't have to do it with a dummy. At this moment, she has all sorts of thoughts. The girl is simply not used to his behavior, although there is nothing wrong with it. Now she understands how he felt at that moment when she, after never doing this before, suddenly pounced on him and started asking how his day went. Of course, she agreed, since he himself suggested it. Then she has no reason to refuse or look for excuses. She is even pleased that he remembered her, and instead of spending the whole evening in his office, it is important to him that she receives a little of his attention. Today is some special day. Nothing bad happened. It's as if everyone agreed. Or maybe it's the result of all the conversations they've had lately. This concerns both the servants and their personal moments. And then, as usual, she couldn't dance calmly. She started to press on pity as if he had to help her too often. And not only, after a difficult past where she had nothing, even the most basic things, it is very unusual for her to immediately jump to another level of life, where she can be given gifts for no reason. She has no responsibilities. Food is freely available, money too, and she can do what she likes. She has personal assistants, a wonderful husband, and every opportunity that exists in this world. And if problems arise, they are immediately resolved. Maybe that's exactly what she wanted to tell him. And it was a mistake to start by saying that she felt guilty. She could have simply thanked him for everything he does for her. But she hasn't learned that yet. Words cannot express how pleasant it is for her to feel his care and support, which is simply priceless even when they part. She will remember every day spent with him. The guy told her that instead of apologizing, it is better to thank the person because words of gratitude are much nicer to hear than the fact that she is causing him trouble. The lady promised that she would try to improve in this regard because she now understands what an important role it is, not what she says, but how she says it. The guy says that he likes it when she understands him and that it is important for her to discuss all problems, rather than keep silent about them and keep them to herself. It seems that immediately after talking with a friend about whether he would develop feelings for this girl after some time, he became more attentive to her, as if he unconsciously wants to spend more time with her, although he himself has a lot of work, and he told her that he is absolutely free. Claire doubts very much that he is in such a good mood, that he is so kind to everyone. She has already had some thoughts, but she tries not to think about it seriously. After all, with such a luxurious life and such a luxurious man by her side, it's hard not to fall in love with him. And she doesn't want to suffer later because it's not mutual. It's easier for her to hold on now, not to pay attention to all these moments, than to cry at night and regret that she even agreed to this. They don't even notice how gracefully they perform all the movements. Although before that, they didn't even discuss how it would all happen. Everything happens somehow by itself. He keeps looking into her eyes so intently that she starts to hide her eyes because she won't be able to stand it any longer. And today he has some special touches. He is incredibly gentle, as if towards the one he truly loves. This is what it means to not get hung up and dance calmly, without any fear. Everything comes out so naturally as if they rehearse every day. It will be very disappointing if at the most crucial moment, when everyone is looking at them, they get nervous and dance poorly. The girl decided for herself that she would simply take advantage of all the opportunities in her life at the moment. For now, she doesn't want to think that in a year all this will end. But such thoughts still visit her sometimes. It makes her terribly sad, but she knew what she was getting into. Everything was fine, when suddenly he stopped and started looking at her as if he remembered that he had some important business. She asked what happened, but he remained silent, as if he didn't want to share his problems with her. Claire is already starting to think that the problem is in her. She started to remember what she could have said or done wrong, but she still didn't understand anything. Literally a minute ago, everything was fine, and now it's as if he's been replaced. She tries not to show it, but it's a little alarming. It turns out that he simply imagined himself dancing this dance with his beloved. Or maybe he felt ashamed that he was physically doing it with one and mentally with another. In any case, it is not his wife's problem, especially since he himself understood that this person would become a part of his life. There is no way around it. If you think about it, it's been only a little time, literally a couple of days, and there's a whole year ahead. And after this time, they will become much closer to each other. So much so that later they will have to part with great pain, even if no feelings appear between them. They will still become close, and the parting will be very painful for everyone. At the moment when the lady felt that he might soon leave, she took the opportunity and said that she was very pleased that he came to her so unexpectedly. He replied that he would try to do this more often, because he understood that she had very few people here with whom she could communicate, and he was the closest of them all. Claire asked that if he was thinking about it, that he not be distracted from work and come only when he was truly free. After that, they started discussing what was going on with the upcoming event. She needed to know how to behave better so as not to stand out too much and not hide in the corners. He says that it is enough to just be near him, and if necessary, he will prompt her about something. And in the meantime, as it turned out, during those half an hour that they were dancing, her shoes were rubbing her really badly. She was suffering and pretending that everything was fine. Now he notices that something is wrong with her. At first he was embarrassed to ask what happened, but then he still asked why she had such a face, as if something was happening. She didn't want to tell him about it until the very end. But when she started to fall, there was nothing left to hide, she would have to confess. It so happened that he did not expect this, and they both fell. But fortunately, no one was hurt, and no one was in pain. The girl is already thinking how many more awkward situations like this are ahead of her, because the more she thinks about it, the more often they happen. She apologized for being too clumsy, and he replied that it happens to everyone and there is nothing wrong with it. Luckily, this time she wasn't so nervous, so she reacted more or less normally, almost the same as he did. It's probably because she already feels much more comfortable with him than she did when they first met. Claire asked what she could do to apologize for what just happened, and he said that since she was the one suggesting it, he goes to ask her to never change in front of him again, even when she is really guilty or something serious happens. He came up with it for her own good, and he was also tired of her apologizing for every little thing, even when the situation could have been simply ignored and ignored. She hadn't been to such a year. She thought he would ask her to cook or do something, and then this, although in fact it sounds very easy and at the same time very difficult. She started saying that, in fact, she is a very polite person and sees nothing wrong with apologizing when she is at fault for something. He suddenly smiled and said that he already liked it when she was so emotional and could defend her position. Everything was fine, but suddenly she starts running away as if she was offended by him. He asked her to stop, but she ignored him. It turns out she just heard that a doctor had come to see them, and he was called by one of the maids who was eavesdropping on the conversation and heard that someone had fallen. The gentleman decided to draw a conclusion as if he didn't understand anything, and in the meantime, the girl didn't apologize for her behavior, as he asked. She's already starting to like this rule. That doctor asked to wrap his head with a wet towel. The guy didn't really like the idea, but he still agreed. It's very hard to breathe through this towel. Well, since the doctor asked, I have to do it. The girl tells him that it won't be for long, that it's only for his own good. But this doesn't calm him down. It only reminds him even more that he needs to sit like this for a whole hour. Meanwhile, there was a knock on the door. He apologized for disturbing and said that he had a small talk. She remembers this man very well, and she is also not used to seeing him with a normal expression on his face, and not with one as if he hates her. It turns out he's prepared a new item that he wants to add to the menu and offered her to taste these cupcakes, and he's also happy to hear her wishes about what filling she'd like to add to them if they taste good on their own. He himself has already tried them, but still does not fully understand whether they deserve a place on the menu for the staff and for Mrs. and Mrs. The thing is that she really loves such desserts, especially with filling. So he guessed right with the idea. After all, there can never be too many sweets. She doesn't even know how to tell him correctly that no matter what filling he decides to add, she will still be delighted because there is no filling that she would not like. The cook has so many options that it will be very difficult for them to decide, because in this regard it is impossible not to please her. He can make even not the most delicious cakes in his opinion. They will still be a work of art for her. And finally, she tries the first cupcake, and it is so fragrant and soft that she doesn't even have enough words to say anything. She ate it in a couple of bites and didn't even notice how it happened. And that is the truest assessment of his efforts. For such an occasion, she even called other assistants to give their opinion. Although the girl is sure that these cupcakes cannot have any disadvantages, the girls didn't think they would have such a task today. Of course, they wouldn't mind helping, especially since they worked so hard that they quickly got hungry and wouldn't refuse to have a snack. Milana says that firstly, they look very appetizing, and judging by the fact that they are still warm, they still retain their softness. And she really loves fresh-baked goods. The other assistant is more reserved. She looks at them as if there is nothing special about it. Suddenly, she said that she thought it would be better to add some main courses to the menu rather than desserts because they were less healthy and took much longer to prepare. The girl thought that maybe there was some sense in this, but still, in order not to offend the cook, she asked them to try it and tell her how it tasted. In the end, they came to the conclusion that the muffins were very tasty, but they would have to think about adding them to the menu or not because, indeed, they take a long time to make, and she would not want the cook to spend so much time on it because you can make something else much faster, something more satisfying and healthy. She explained everything to him correctly, thanked him for his efforts, and promised that when she wanted something like that, she would definitely ask him to make these muffins because they were really great. Meanwhile, she was going to go somewhere in the middle of the day. Her assistant offered to go with her, but the girl did not want to bother them and decided to go herself, especially since she hasn't been alone for a long time. Now she really needs it, especially since they have their own things to do, which they would have to finish at night. Claire wants to send a gift. She is a little worried because she might meet her husband's colleagues, and they need to be greeted properly so as not to embarrass anyone. It is not yet entirely clear what will happen next. She has not told anyone about it and does not even speak about it out loud. Here she was already brought to the gate. The driver wished her all the best and drove back. Now she has to somehow figure out where everything is and where she should go. It seems like it was just recently, but she has already gotten out of the habit of being around a lot of people. It seems to her that everyone is looking at her and judging her for something. The girl understands that she will have to get used to this way of life in any case. Because being the wife of such a man, it is impossible to be at home all the time and not see anyone. This is exactly what he mentioned when he proposed this marriage. This is his only condition, so today is a great opportunity to prepare. Lucky that it's not some serious event. There will just be people around, but it's enough to make her feel awkward already. There was not a single person she knew here, so she went up to the guard and said that she was from the Duke's house and had come here to give something to her husband, the Duke. He looked at her suspiciously because he hadn't seen her before. And if it turned out that she was cheating on him, he could lose his job because of it. The man always carefully checks everyone who tries to enter the territory. First, he needs to see her entry permit, and she looked at him as if she didn't have anything like that. The man asked how she could not know that without an entry permit or a royal order, she would not be allowed in here. In this case, in order not to argue with him and not to attract unnecessary attention to herself, Claire asked this man to pass on what she wanted to give to her husband personally. He apologized and said that according to the rules, he also can't accept anything from strangers. They literally receive some gifts for the Duke every day, but according to the order, all this must be rejected so that not a single suspicious object is left on the territory. He tries to explain that it's part of his job. As a human being, he understands that she most likely isn't deceiving him. But these are the rules and he can't do anything about it. Otherwise, he'll risk his job. And the guard also said that they are not supposed to let even the master's relatives through, because some people can pose as relatives specifically to harm His Highness on the territory with bad intentions. And he also says that it will sound offensive to her, but he hasn't heard that the gentleman managed to get married, so her words about her being his wife sound a little funny. Claire has no idea how to give the gift to her husband. She physically cannot leave him in this area. The situation seems hopeless. After that, they started talking to him. You can understand him. He stands in one place all day. The man is bored, but she has unfinished business, and she is not in the mood for jokes right now. The problem is that until she is convinced by her husband, she will not be able to return home, And she also does not want to set this man up, because if she carries out her plan, he may suffer. Moreover, the carriage has already left, and if it took her 40 minutes to get here by carriage, then on foot it would take at least 3 times longer. So it is unrealistic. All she can do is ask if she can wait for him here, in case Irel comes out into the street, sees her, and says she can come in. The guard replied that she could do so, but he thought it was pointless because the gentleman rarely left his office. Having received permission, she stayed here and thought that it turns out that she had just communicated with a stranger. She managed to remain polite, and in general, it was not at all scary, as she imagined. And in the meantime, since she approached this gathering, which is already an hour and a half, the girl is hungry, tired of standing on her feet, and no longer knows what to do now. Maybe if she had the opportunity to somehow return home, she would have already done it. But now, she can only stand in the same place and hope for a miracle. And in the meantime, that same guard approached her. He came back from break and is very surprised that she is still here, and also says that before this, there were many other ladies who waited, but she set a record for waiting. On the one hand, it's at least a little more fun with him, but the man insists so much that she doesn't stay here because there's no point, that it's a little stressful, and she can't explain to him that she has no choice. And he is also sure that she cannot be the Duke's wife and pretends to be her, like all the others who come here every day. It wasn't very pleasant to hear, but she wasn't going to prove anything to him. At least she didn't have any evidence, and sooner or later he would understand everything anyway. And maybe she will even feel awkward, because she just told her straight to her face that she cannot be the master's wife. It seems that he himself likes to talk about anything, just to pass the time at work. She even wanted him to leave her alone, but the man still continues to talk to himself. Some time has passed, he is not going to change the subject. He begins to reason that if he still does not know whether the gentleman has married, and especially to whom, this may mean that the Duke does not want anyone to know about it. The girl really wants to tell him something about this, but she thought it would be better not to say too much. Let him think as he wants. I wonder how he will behave when he finds out that he talked about such topics with the one he was discussing. When suddenly some guy came up to them and asked why. Instead of doing his duties, the knight was talking to some girl, although he should be in another place. The subordinate got a little scared. He understands that there is no need to say anything. He just got the hint and ran to his workplace. At first, the girl didn't understand why he had gone off so abruptly, but then she saw this guy and began to very quickly remember who he could be. She liked those incredible golden eyes at first sight, and then she looked closer and thought as if she had seen him somewhere before. Suddenly, that knight returned, because firstly, he never met her, and secondly, he wants to explain to the master that he talked to her not just like that, but partly on business. At this point, the lady was afraid that they might not believe her, but she said anyway that her name had recently been Claire Morris. But since she got married, she was now Claire Eater. The guard was surprised. He thought that she was not afraid to tell him that, and since the girl introduced herself to this man under the name of the Duke, accordingly, her words were true. Kate says he now understands why she seemed familiar to him, but he keeps quiet about knowing more about her than she can imagine. Then he confessed that he was her husband's friend, and at that moment the knight stood nearby and could not believe his ears and eyes. He really didn't think that he would ever meet his friend's real wife, because he saw with his own eyes how some pretended to be her and said that it looked very funny. He also understands that she is probably very worried right now, so he said that she can relax next to him. He is not an enemy, and if necessary, he can become faithful or an assistant to her. Kate asked why she came here, and then laughed, because he realized that the only reason she could have come here was because she needed something from her husband, most likely to pass on or say something. Then he never found out what exactly she was interested in. He started telling her that this place is like home for him, because he comes here more often than anywhere else. If the knight had only known that everything would turn out this way, he would have spoken much less, because now he feels guilty. And she didn't think that this moment would come so quickly. Overall, she is happy with the situation. At least she doesn't have to stay here for the whole day. Just in case the situation happens again, Kate asked next time to just take her to Iroh without any questions. In the end, the knight asked the girl for forgiveness, because it seemed to him that he had managed to offend her many times, although it was not obvious that she was upset. All the same, he felt very uncomfortable in front of her. She tells him that everything is fine. In his place, she would probably have done the same, especially since he acted strictly according to the rules, and this is commendable. Moreover, she is grateful to him for keeping her company, and since such a situation happened, she wanted to treat him to those very cupcakes. It was so cute that Kate even felt a little embarrassed, and the night even more so, in any case. The main thing is that everything happened without adventures and conflict. Still, work duties need to be carried out. The gentleman hinted slightly that they had been here for a while, and the subordinate immediately understood everything. It was a little hard to say goodbye, but they had already spent so much time together, and now Kate was waiting for her. He offered to give her a short tour, walk around the area, and of course take her to her husband. Since they are strangers and have nothing in common, he simply asked how she was doing, what she had done today, and how long it had been since she met him. The guy imagines how long she had to wait for him to show up, to which she replied that everything was fine. And as for what she knows about him, Prince Kate is the king's younger brother, and she also heard that he gets along well with her husband, so it's better to stay on good terms with him. Her husband and his highness, two of the most distinguished noblemen of high society. Even a person like her, not very well versed in gossip, had heard of them. Unlike her benevolent husband, there were many romantic rumors about his highness. He often became the perfect topic for scandals among the nobles. But perhaps due to the fact that he chooses partners wisely, not one of the rumors ever developed into a major scandal. Meanwhile, while they are walking down the corridor, the girl already thought that the serious topic was over, when suddenly he says that he found out from her from a friend and wanted to know if she is really as good as everyone says. After that, they started talking about how he would like her to address him simply by name, because he never liked all these formalities, especially between more or less close people. She tells him that it will be very difficult for her, because if she respects a person, she cannot address him by name, like some kind of girlfriend or friend. Moreover, before she was often treated in a maximally non-disparaging manner, so it is now important for her that not only she, but she also treats people as they should be treated. Time flies by so quickly that she even forgot that she actually came here to see her husband and wanted to treat him to fresh muffins. Kate turned out to be a very nice person. It is very easy to move on from topic to topic with him, and you can be lucky enough to meet such people very rarely. He also told her that she is an open person, and that is very catchy. Although it seemed to him that at the first meeting, it is impossible to understand whether a person is a good conversationalist or not. But with her, everything is clear. And meanwhile, the Duke, as usual, is in his office. He has so much to do that he hasn't eaten anything since morning and hasn't even drunk water. Due to the fact that over the past few years, he has been refusing any weekends or vacations. So many problems and thoughts have accumulated in his head that every day it is becoming more and more difficult for him to focus on even something elementary. Even when he comes home, he has the feeling as if he is still at work and does not have time to switch. If you look at him at any time, most often, the guy is holding his head because it hurts constantly. He talked to his assistant for a very long time. Now they have said goodbye to him, and no one guesses that there is already someone standing behind the door whom he does not expect to see. The assistant just opened the door. Kate came to the threshold, smiling as if he had a surprise, although you could say that he did. He says that he understands that there is no time for him now, but this time the situation is special, and he should set aside at least a couple of minutes. Irel tells him that there is no reason that would be significant for him to pause. His friend smiles and says that he is very much mistaken. Then Claire came out from behind him, who had been hiding all this time because she was afraid that she would not be welcome here. Then she realized that it was really better not to waste time. And the guy, when he saw her, froze in one place, as if they had not seen each other for several years, and she was considered missing. He asked what she was doing here and, most importantly, how she managed to get in here. And Kate decided to tell the story for her and began by saying that, in fact, his wife had been standing here all day since early morning, and despite the fact that they wouldn't let her in, she stayed and hoped that a miracle would happen. He means that the rules need to be changed urgently, at least for her, because if next time she has to come here again, it could really take a whole day until one of them notices her. The girl approached him with a smile and said that it was for his good mood. It turns out that she felt that he could not eat normally and brought him food that he did not need to wait for and leave the office for. Of course, he is very pleased, but still very awkward, and his thoughts are too busy, so he did not even think to thank her and apologize for this whole situation. After this, assistant Dmitri decided to get to know her, just in case. Maybe they would see each other again someday. She says that she is very glad to meet them and apologizes again if she distracted them too much. Now the lady will know that it is better to come here only in emergency cases because no one has time for ordinary conversations. Aurel is so pleased to see her that he no longer wants to go back to work. He even thought about offering her to stay here, and then he kept silent, because you never know how his assistants will react to this, especially since he himself said that he doesn't have time for this. Then there was some awkward pause. Kate, as usual, started to joke some jokes, but then realized that it was better without it. He also liked talking to the girl so much that no one even thinks about kicking her out or hinting about it. She feels it and is very grateful to everyone who treats her well here. It is very valuable to her. She also says that it is so beautiful here everywhere that she would like to walk around at least one more floor if no one minds. In the end, since she was already there, the husband could not allow her to leave without talking to him alone. He asked his assistants to make tea and make sure that no one came to him, even if something urgent happened. She heard it, so now she says that it was not necessary, and if he is busy there, then they can talk tonight during the day. The guy admitted that he has been spending so much time on work lately that his health is already starting to suffer because of it. He started having problems with his memory. He eats little, hardly sleeps, and stopped enjoying anything. Taking advantage of the opportunity, the girl suggested taking a few days off, to which he replied that in order to do this, he needs to plan it in advance, because he can't just up and stay home tomorrow. You will have to do some work in advance, shift all your responsibilities to someone who has free time or a desire to replace it. And this is not so simple. Claire doesn't want to be intrusive in any way, but she gently hinted that she was a little bored at home without him and would really like to spend at least one day with him so that no one would bother them or distract them. As soon as she said this, she realized that it was too much because he didn't owe her anything like that. And the guy smiled because he realized that his presence was still important to her. The lady apologized if it was too much on her part, but he still understood her and would probably try to think of something. Since he is the kind of person who cannot be idle, he understands her perfectly in the sense that if he were at someone's house and there was no one to walk with or talk to, he wouldn't like it either. He understands that she wants to spend time with him, not necessarily because she likes him, but simply like with a friend. The girl remembered how she just recently wanted to start cooking, but she felt awkward going into the kitchen with the thought that someone might not like it. Even though he gave permission, she still doesn't want to take advantage of it and cause inconvenience to anyone, especially at work. She thought that if she worked as a cook somewhere, she wouldn't like it either if someone else came in there and, firstly, cooked something, and, secondly, left dirty dishes behind. She already had an idea to offer him some kind of cooperation. Maybe she could become his assistant or secretary. And then she thought that if he had such a need, then her husband would have hired someone a long time ago without any problems. Irel promised that as soon as he has the opportunity to be at home, he will definitely take advantage of it. But now is a special time when it is really better to devote maximum attention to work. Because if he does less than he needs to now, serious problems may arise later. And she also says that she liked this whole area so much that she would come here just to take a walk. It's just a pity that it takes a long time to get here. Most likely, sooner or later, if she does come here, the driver will get tired of driving her here and back every day. So this is not such a good idea. And then he had a brilliant idea. Since almost no one knows about it, he decided to fix it. The most he can do today is introduce her to everyone who is in this area. He led her into the main hall, invited everyone who could come here, and explained that today he was very unexpectedly forced to introduce them all to his wife. The girl then said that she felt awkward about distracting so many people, but since her husband had decided so, she would be happy to meet them. They all look at her and don't know how to react because no one was prepared for this, and neither was she. If some had known that this would happen and that the master's wife would be looking at them, they would have put themselves in order, but they did not even have time to do this because they were told that something urgent would happen here. Claire apologized to everyone who felt awkward or who she had disturbed in some way, and also admitted that she was just as nervous as they all were, maybe even more so because she was alone, and there were many of them. When suddenly someone says that he noticed her this afternoon, she was with this huge basket and decided to ask what she brought. The girl says that she wanted to treat her husband to some cupcakes, and if anyone wants some, she can bring some for the others, because their cook enjoys cooking something in huge quantities. Then these guys explained that they didn't mean it that way at all. They didn't want to ask for it, but since that's the case, they wouldn't mind trying something tasty in the coming days. Claire notices that her husband is upset. She asks him what's wrong, but he remains silent, as if he had already managed to take offense at something. She thought he was just overworked or not used to being without a body, so she put her hand on his to measure his temperature. He forgave her for what she was doing, and the girl said that it was necessary, and she was trying to do what was best so that she could immediately understand whether he was feeling bad or not. Claire didn't immediately realize that he might be uncomfortable in front of his colleagues, and when she did, she removed her hand and apologized to him. Because it was probably unnecessary, and in the meantime, Kate says that in fact it was very sweet, and some people don't necessarily have to make such a facial expression because it's basic care, and many people dream of it. The guy thought that indeed, why was he behaving like that at the moment when she was worried about him, although she wasn't obliged to? It so happened that they were already going home together. Did she really manage to miraculously persuade him to go on vacation? But literally this morning, he was sure that he would remain in the office until the very night, and there was little point in returning home at all because he had to go to work in the morning anyway. The girl even asked how he decided that. She didn't even think of asking him, but he just went and left, as if he had deceived her and in fact had no important business. He smiled and replied that he had thought of something, but if he continued working at the same pace for another couple of days, he would definitely go crazy. Claire joked that if she was bored, she would come next time and take him with her so that her husband wouldn't overwork himself. He admitted that in fact, he really missed such spontaneous decisions, and thanks to her, he now feels great. There is absolute lightness in his head. He was able to offer all his responsibilities to several people. Naturally, he will definitely thank them later, and he wants to tell her that she made the right decisions by coming to him. Otherwise, he would never have decided to leave work in the middle of the day just to unwind and rest for a while. She asks him what his plans are for today, and he becomes thoughtful because he hadn't planned anything at all. And in order not to waste this day, he needs to think very carefully about what he can do. Claire is trying to figure out what he is more inclined to do. Spend this time calmly without straining himself, or do something unusual to distract himself as much as possible. Here they have already returned home. No one expected to see the gentleman so early. Usually he arrives either at night or the next day, and then this. Claire herself didn't think that everything would turn out like this. She had already resigned herself to the fact that she would either have to walk back or wait under the fence until the next day to call the carriage again, because they don't go twice a day. She hasn't figured out why yet, but she'll definitely figure it out later because it's not right. It's very difficult to plan anything, considering that you can only leave once and immediately return home without the opportunity to stay anywhere for more than a couple of minutes, so as not to make the driver wait. It seems to her that such a system is absolutely wrong, but more on that later. Now we need to try to use our time as productively as possible. And then it started. The chef came out to them, who found out that she had taken his cupcakes outside the territory. It would seem that there was something wrong with that. But he is very unhappy that she did not warn him about this, because it is desirable to eat them immediately, and he is worried that the gentleman ate them and did not enjoy them as much as if he had tried them much earlier. He's so angry, like something serious happened. Even though the cold muffins were incredibly soft and delicious, Claire realized that he was a hot-tempered person, and it was very difficult for him to control his emotions, especially when it came to his work or results. To make him feel better, she promised that this would not happen again, and if she wanted to take his food somewhere, she would definitely warn him about it so that he could change the recipe and the food would stay soft longer. As she wanted, he felt better. He likes to be heard, so he apologized for raising his voice a little and also promised that it would not happen again. While everyone was finally happy, the girl asked her husband if he had any ideas because she still didn't know what to do. He suggests just doing what you want, not inventing anything, so that in general you don't strain yourself and relax even now when they go into the room. She likes this idea. After that, everyone understood that it was better not to disturb them now, especially since they had already discussed everything that was necessary. They thanked everyone for their attention and then asked them to return to their duties. After all, there was still a whole day ahead. And today is the day off for the master only. So no matter how it sounds, only he can rest today. Everyone understands that he has earned this rest. The Duke is the man who can work much more than others. Although he has the opportunity to distribute all his duties among his assistants and not do anything at all, as his colleagues actually do. But the guy is simply too responsible a person. He believes that no one can handle this job better than him. The main thing is that it is not as exhausting as it has been until today. Here they have already entered the house. It is very nice here, quiet, cool. He has already forgotten what it is like to be at home. Not to sleep here for a couple of hours, but simply walking around, not thinking about anything, as it should be. And in the meantime, while her husband went to take a shower, Claire asked the power to bring her some hand cream because she had been carrying a heavy box all day and had chafed her hands. And they took advantage of the opportunity and decided to talk about how she so easily and naturally manages to change her master for the better, and not only for her own benefit, but also for his benefit. Everyone noticed that with the appearance of the lady in this house, he became much softer. Although he rarely appears at home, it is still noticeable. Also, he was constantly told before that he was spending more time at work than necessary, but he didn't listen to anyone. And as soon as his wife showed up in his office once and hinted that he should rest more, half an hour later, they were already driving home together. No one understands how I managed to do this. Although she doesn't understand even more, because considering the fact that they don't have any feelings for each other, it's generally very surprising that she can influence him like that. In any case, everyone is very happy that his wife has a good influence on Arel. Although it does not affect their work in any way, they are just happy for him that the right person has appeared in his life. But they still don't know some things that only the two of them know. If you take all this into account, his changes are truly amazing. Because if his girlfriend influenced him in this way, that would be one thing, but she is a stranger to him, who is here by agreement and influences him in this way. That is just inexplicable. The lady explained that she herself did not understand how it worked, but since it was so, she would continue in the same spirit. Then they started offering her a better product that would work much more effectively and faster than a regular cream. They had already tried it on themselves, so they could say for sure that she would like the result. In the end, the girl even got into such a conversation with this maid, with whom she communicated the least, that they even felt comfortable. Although they couldn't even imagine that this would happen before, and they still don't know when everything changed. Initially, only Milana treated her well, and now this maid, who used to be one of those who discussed the new mistress with her colleagues, she thought about it and decided to apologize for allowing herself to be in the company that had something against her. It was terribly disrespectful, ugly on her part, and overall wrong, because she is just a servant who has to do her job and who is not obliged to please anyone. Claire replied that everything was fine. She was not offended by her, because everyone has the right to make mistakes, especially since she does not know how she would have acted in her place. The girl herself had heard that some noble ladies were very unpleasant people, so she probably would have thought badly of the person too, without getting to know him. Meanwhile, the next day has come. They are already getting her ready to go somewhere, and for some reason, unlike yesterday, today the girl is very tense. It's as if she feels that something will go wrong today, and that this day won't be as easy as the previous one. Although nothing bad has happened yet, she still has a very unpleasant feeling, and she can't figure out what it's connected to. Suddenly, they remember that when they went shopping, they only paid attention to basic clothes, but completely forgot about shoes. It's so old that she won't be able to appear in high society in it, unless, of course, she has to. Somehow, the assistant got her a new pair of shoes. The only problem is that they might not fit her size. The girl is very happy that she is so lucky with her assistants. They do everything they can for her. Without them, she would have to walk around in who knows what. Of course, they are a little too big, and after yesterday, the lady's feet are chafed. But she would feel the same in any other shoes, and at least they are new and look normal. The assistant suggested applying light makeup. She hadn't done it for a long time, and it certainly wouldn't hurt. Moreover, it would be nice to highlight the beautiful facial features with such a special outfit so that they are more noticeable. They also agreed to definitely set aside time for shopping to buy several pairs of shoes. Because if there are problems with this next time, it will be very sad because it is wrong to appear in the same thing several times in a row.